Hi guys, welcome to another session of Green Animate. Green Animate is basically a series of sessions where we talk with different people from different walks of life, different professions and disciplines on how sustainability permeates into their subjects and their discourse. It is not only important to involve people who are professionally involved in fields, teachers, but also it is important to involve students into this field because the students are actively engaged in different discourse and they would be the best people to know and tell about what they are currently learning and how that can be connected with the idea of sustainability. Today's guest is Upasana. She is a student of postgraduate final year from Jalapur University, and she is currently studying about gender studies. I shall go ahead with the session now. Uh, while we do that, it's important to know that gender is an important part of sustainability and development. Okay, so we have our guest with us online. Hello, Upasana.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are perfectly audible. Thank you so much for giving us the time and agreeing to be a part of this session. I'm really happy to have you with us today.
Thank you, Amita. This is a very important platform for me, and I'm very much grateful that you invited me to be a part of such an interesting discussion. Because I think even during the recent outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, we have recently understood that we really have to take very great care of our environment, considering the different atrocities that we have made, and we have to be really serious. But what I feel is that we often try to be responsible. We often read the theories, read various articles about that nature is important, conserving your environment is important, but we do not know how to contribute to that. I'm very much thankful that you and Momodi have come up with this platform so that we can educate ourselves. And I want to mention it because I have learned a lot from this platform that have made different changes in my lifestyle, and I'm happy that I am able to contribute as a responsible citizen for my environment so that I can make a better future for my next generation or for myself and all the other species, because all lives matter. We have to understand that. And thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. You are audible. Please go on.
One more thing I would also like to say is that what I like about this platform is that it talks about one of the most interesting topics that is often ignored by a lot of platforms, that is menstruation health. uh, this is considered as a taboo in most of the places in India as well, and also I do believe in other places, because when I come across with theories that often talk about different kinds of gender discrimination, we come to know that even in different countries there is a huge taboo that is going on regarding menstruation health and hygiene, and because of that we women are suffering so much. And I am very grateful that Green Ammo has come up with numerous videos regarding menstruation health, and all the videos are very much knowledgeable, and they come up with proper logic and help us specifically women to talk about our problems and communicate so that we can have a logical answer. And also, most of us, I think, do not know that sanitary napkins are causing huge harm for our earth, because I think these are made of plastic. So we also often do not know that even if we are trying to contribute for our environment, how can we actually make a change by shifting to different things rather than sanitary napkins like menstruation cup. And I'm very much thankful to Momodi for coming up with such detailed videos, because we cannot often talk about these things because we have a lot of questions like, is it uncomfortable, or am I be will I be able to will I be able to easily put it in, or is it uncomfortable, can it help me out during my heavy flow. And I do believe these questions need to be also answered as an important subject when we talk about environment. And I'm very thankful. So before we start with the discussion, because I think Amida, I would be very happy to know more from Amida, but I thought that these things need to be said, because apart from, I don't consider these as recommendations, but I think that these are the things that I've learned, and these are the things that have helped me a lot to make small changes and contribute for my environment. So I'm very thankful to you both.
Upasana, actually, it makes both me and Momo extremely happy to know that when we are talking about something, we are able to reach out to people with our platform, and people can be engaged, and they are making their choices to be more sustainable by looking or following what we are doing and taking inspiration from that. Uh, when you just mentioned Momo's name, she had a huge smile on her face right now. So that's the thing, because every people who are making that choice, either in terms of making a switch to menstrual cups, or taking a lifestyle change, decision to change their lifestyle to a more sustainable one. That makes us profoundly happy because we know that we are doing the right thing and we are going in the right direction. And that also gives us the encouragement to continue the work that we are doing. Because that's important, because it has to go on, and we have to keep on learning and sharing knowledge. And as you said, that the platform for learning, we also keep on learning from others, and we try to share that knowledge, whatever we learn. And then uh, as people say about knowledge, is that it grows when you share. So that's the thing. It's about a collective growth of knowledge for everybody. You were also quite right about when you said about plastic pollution created by menstrual pads. Uh, it has a substantial amount of plastic, and that, apart from being polluting for the nature, is also harmful for the health, because plastic has carcinogenic substances. And when that is put at a sensitive part of the body, and it disrupts the hormonal signals, and does a lot of problem on a biological and a cellular scale, which basically is not discussed on a larger scale. Previously today, I was also having a discussion, and yesterday we had the session, Momo and we had the session about on red pollutants, which is basically a session on sustainable menstruation. And there we were talking about why guys and everyone should be involved in this discussion. It should not be a taboo, first of all, and it should be a discourse for everybody, because pollution, first of all, does not know or does not differentiate based on gender. And the health and well-being of our mothers, our sisters, our friends, and our wives should be the concern also. So when we talk about this, it is also the concern that shows up that, okay, when you switch to a better product, it is healthier for you. And that is why I am talking about it. Because we want the well-being of our partners and everyone, every female companion that we have around us. Now, that being said, you said that, you are studying gender, that is your major discipline in your postgraduate, gender studies. And
No,
part of
actually,
that,
I'm sorry, my
yeah,
discipline is comparative literature, but I'm doing
okay,
my research currently based in the field
okay,
of gender studies.
okay, great, great. So tell me something, how did you come across, or why did you choose this subject about doing research in gender studies? What attracts you towards this discipline?
I do believe that I have always read about stories since my childhood where I have found a profound stereotype, uh, proper distinction between a male character and a female character. Most importantly, I have grown up seeing that I am a girl, so I'm supposed to play with dolls. And if I have a brother, then he will be provided with cars or guns as toys. So I have always questioned why, and even when I have read various literatures, I have always found that this distinction of gender is problematic and very stereotypical, and also uh, understanding the circumstantiality and my surroundings, I have seen, and also growing up as a woman, I have seen that uh, there are various challenges of being a woman, especially for a country where there are different taboos and different patriarchal rules. And so at some point I feel that there should be a proper understanding of why it is problematic. Like, even if I'm trying to radicalize the thought, or trying to be progressive, I have often heard in different households, uh, fathers keep on telling their daughters that I have brought you up like a son. So this entire statement becomes very problematic, because a daughter can be equally capable of doing the works that a son can do or perform. And also, if I look at different important personalities, I see that there is not a single work that can be attributed to a specific gender. Like, if we see chefs, there are numerous male chefs, so you cannot really tell that cooking is a woman's job. And how can you even associate such important skills with gender? So I thought that I should be studying more about it, and then I found out that there are different patterns of oppression that is going on, and that has been going on in different families for ages. Also, because these people are not aware of how can we actually think differently, because there is a system going on. We know that pink is a color for a female person. Male guys are not supposed to wear pink and sky blue, these kinds of stereotypes. And women like teddy bears, women might not like teddy bears. So this entire idea of challenging the stereotypes, and I also believe at this point, though I have read really less till now, and I do believe that I have a lot more scope of reading, that women's studies have become a lot more academic institution than activism. But when we talk about fighting for something that is important, fighting for the rights of a person, basic rights of living, then it should be activism first. And that is why I think I am more interested in this subject, because it also helps me to discover my capabilities as a woman and my ideas of challenging the stereotypes of the society every time. And it is also very amazing when people really look at me with bigger eyes and ask me, how can you do it, you are a girl? And that also makes me very happy about doing a discipline that makes me empowered. So that is why I think specifically I am interested in women's studies, gender
Excellent,
studies.
excellent. Uh, you were also saying that you found that the idea or discrimination not only has permeated into the language but also into music. So, where do you think, how does it express? How does the gender discrimination get expressed into music, in your opinion?
Um, um, One of the example that I am willing to provide, because it has happened with me, is that before 2017 I was mostly into soft rock and blues and jazz, but after 2017 I started listening to metal. And at some point of time I believe that it is a specific music genre that provided me with a philosophy, with different knowledge systems, and I got to learn a lot. I realized that music is not only lyrics and sound, it is much more than that, and it is about how you associate with it. But also while listening to metal, specifically because of my friends and also because of your influence, I have listened to extreme metal, and I have often come across this question that women are mostly not into heavy metal or extreme metal, or women cannot do grindcore, or women cannot properly growl, or sort of like that, because the idea of femininity is always associated with things that are delicate, like flowers or other like colors like pink that are very delicate. But we often forget that we have Wendy O. Williams, and we have legends who have always showed us that you can do much more than just wearing pink frocks, and even if you do wear pink frocks, you can still do better metal than a lot of other men can do. And I think that this is a kind of stereotype that is still prevailing, most importantly among people who still are not very much familiar with metal as a music genre, who mostly listen to rock and roll. So they also have this stereotypical notion. So I believe that when I research mostly about women's studies in a specific genre like metal, that is less talked about, uh, specifically extreme metal, which is not. I know that Sabbath is something different, and people really know Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is also metal, but when the kind of metal that I'm talking about is different. That's extreme metal. I hope you
I think
understand.
I,
So
I think I
in
understand.
that, and so I have found a lot of bands from Japan, a lot of young women who are coming up with amazing grindcore bands. And also I have heard about Momodi, who used to sing. So we have these women who are breaking the gender stereotypes, like uh, the ideas of what a manly voice is, the ideas like manly voice, the
Yeah.
ideas of a gentleman's voice. These things need to be changed, because these are stereotypes that are restricting women specifically to do things that they can do better. And also I believe when I was working into this field of metal, I find that extreme metal as a genre is really liberal and progressive for women, at least, to do things by breaking the gender stereotypes. Like they can growl, they can play drums, which are not mostly associated with female characters or the ideas of femininity. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you just mentioned some of my favorite musicians, like during this conversation, Wendy O. Williams, Black Sabbath, and basically true. There have been a lot of women in metal music and in music in general, and they have been exceedingly successful and famous. Starting from Billie Holiday, Aretha Franklin, and down the line, also
Janis
in
Joplin.
metal, Janis Joplin, and then also in metal, we have a lot of German bands, and Holy Moses, and there have been a lot of amazing vocalists, musicians, drummers, guitarists, who have been there, who have outperformed any other musician, from their level. But the thing is that yes, obviously, the knowledge about that probably somehow lacks in, a lot of people do not know about those bands, and that also probably have led to the creation of that mindset that it is probably a man's game, or a man's world, metal music and all. But that is changing slowly, and that is a good thing to see that there is more representation from not only men and women, but from all genders into music and into art, and that is important. More representation would lead to better equity, and that stereotypical mindset would change gradually. Uh, you also wanted to talk about indigenous culture, nature, and sustainability. So, what was that exactly that you had in mind about that topic?
when I was reading about the different cultures of indigenous communities, and this is even very popular. We all know that indigenous people have always bonded with nature in such an amazing way that they have always considered nature as a part of their family, as a being that is very important. So, when I was invited by you to this talk, and when I saw the caption sustainability and culture, it struck in my mind that we have seen that indigenous people and nature, they are inseparable, and they have contributed significantly for each other. If even if we look at Maori culture, and even if we look at the other indigenous tribes of Canada, we have seen that nature is such an important part of their life that when they were forced migrated to different places for colonial oppression, it almost dismantled their existence, and they had to face a lot of problem. So I often wonder is that even when we are discussing environmental sustainability right now, we talk about a lot of scientific facts, but we also know that indigenous people have been able to successfully conserve the forest lands where they are living. Sorry, and what would you think, and what do you feel about it? Do you think indigenous knowledge system is very important for considering the different aspects of environmental sustainability? And when we talk about scientific uh, procedures as well for environmental health and restoration, do we really need to consider indigenous knowledge system as well, because they have been watching the patterns of the climate change and nature? So, and they also significantly contribute because they believe in growing together. So what is your take on it?
Well, if you ask me, when I was studying about the indigenous cultures of Australia, Aboriginals, Torres Strait Islanders, New Zealand's Maori, or also Aboriginals of Canada, one common theme I have noticed was that for thousands of years almost, they have been living sustainability, and that was through the connection with the land. Australia being a very arid and a place which is very harsh in most of the places, the Aboriginals have been living very well. They have adapted to the land by living how to know with nature, not away from nature. And as you said, being forced away from the nature, there have been these assimilation acts, these attempts towards assimilation of the Aboriginals with the mainstream population in the cities and all. When that started happening, they lost connection to the land, and that led to a deterioration of their health, which is now studied as a part of the health gap, what they call as the health gap, is because the average life expectancy of an average Australian is, more than the Aboriginal, indigenous and non-indigenous culture, rather, I would say. So there's a growing difference in the health and well-being status between these two groups of people in the same country living on same resources. That is a clear indication how sustainability in lifestyle and connection to the nature is directly related to the health and well-being of the people. Obviously, related to accessibility of vital infrastructure like healthcare, education, and all. But considering that those things are available in most places in the same region, you would see two different kind of health problems and a growing health divide. This is basically, in my opinion, the biggest proof that why it is important not only to respect and learn from the Aboriginal cultures and their lifestyle, but also to get back to that form of, or some way or the other, because obviously it is not possible to live as how humans used to live probably 1,000, 2,000 years back. But we can integrate both and use the knowledge and wisdom from the ancestral, or the indigenous cultures, and integrate them into the modern lifestyle to be more sustainable. Uh, you also were talking about the ethical dilemmas about certain things. So, what was it? What was the ethical dilemma you want to talk about?
When we talk about environmental health and different problems of environmental balance that are done because of our contributions, it often makes us very much sensitive to know about how can we change our lifestyle. So for an example, we all like one product which is known as Nutella, which is a hazelnut chocolate jam. Probably most of us are very familiar with the product and we use it. So a few days back when I was reading an article, I came to know that in order to make that hazel some of the ingredients that require hazelnut or something for making the jam, they are actually cutting down the trees, and which is actually making the situations for orangutans very crucial because they cannot live without those trees. Those trees are the places where they live. And so, as we also know that we have a very strong attraction for the product, and we also know that if we start consuming such products, it is at the same time is killing a species, and it is at some point making our existence on this earth is very problematic. So how can we respond to that? Because an ethical dilemma starts occurring that we like this product, or there are numerous products or things that we are associated with, or at some point of time we use it, but at the same time we know that these things are causing environmental disaster. So how can we respond to that, and why should we respond to that? Why it is important to positively respond to such things so that we can act as a responsible citizen? This is my question, because we often have this dilemma, should we buy it or not?
I will answer that, but before that, what do you think we should do? What would be your opinion?
I have shifted to a product by checking the ingredients. So I go for products that doesn't contain hazelnut. So at first I had to think that what is my priority, whether environment or nature is my priority, or that product is my priority. So I come up with the decision that I will not be buying that product. Instead of that, I should buy something else, because my liking for a product or my consumerism shouldn't be a problem for another species. Because I believe, though we consider ourselves as something very intelligent in the context of other species, but we also need to believe that the contribution of individual species are important to balance the ecosystem. If orangutans go extinct, that will obviously going to hamper our existence and our health. So what do you think? That's my opinion, but I would like to have...
You just basically said what exactly I wanted to say. Alternative products, that's important, because we have to set our priorities right. It's about time that we set our priorities right. We have to find whether do we care about nature more or our likings more. And as you said, like, you can select products which does not have hazelnut. Similarly, on a similar scale, there's another problem with tea. Because for growing tea plantations, or for having tea plantations, vast amounts of trees are cut down, forests are cleared, just to grow one type of plant, which is the tea plant, which is basically a shrub. That first of all reduces biodiversity of a place. When you have a tree, the tree supports a lot more type of organism than a shrub would. And when you are covering acres and acres of land with those shrubs instead of the trees, you are literally decimating that biodiversity. Tea, which was basically, if you look historically, it's basically a drink which was meant for the elites. It was not supposed to be for everybody. But then with the cultural revolution and the empowerment of people and, upliftment of the classes, we suddenly decided that let's all have tea. And what happened was that there was a huge demand of tea, which was met by clearing more and more and more forests. You see, North Bengal, I'm sure you're well aware of the situation and how much of the deforestation has happened all across that place, North Bengal, northeastern India. a lot of deforestation is happening. Same goes for coffee. First, they deplete groundwater level. Second, they basically take away the biodiversity, both of which has a huge impact on the nature. What is the alternative? We can go for other forms of tea. There are many options. We again actually have a session on green ammo, which is again about different types of food. But there's one series which about within that is about the different types of tea that we can have. Instead of going for tea leaves, we can have tea from other products. So that is more sustainable. It is healthy, and it is it is less impactful for the environment. So that brings me to the last question of the topic. That if you wanted to suggest something to the viewers, or something that you would feel that would make a bigger and a greater impact on nature, or on a positive scale, what that recommendation would be?
I think there are few suggestions that I do follow, uh, considering the recent situation. Is that first we can use paper bags, and we can carry our own paper bags. Those are really affordable, or we can make it on our own because it's very easy to make. So if we use paper bags, or bags made of recycled clothes, then it is easier for us to avoid the plastic. We can also recycle the glass jars by bringing those glass jars whenever we are buying something like spices or something, so that we do not have to take the plastic products from the shopkeeper. Second, I do believe that I have been following some sessions of Momodi about the process of recycling your old garments and making new out of it. I think it's a brilliant idea of saving wastages and doing something new. Plus, it also enhances your creativity. You can start a business out of it. Anybody can start a business out of it. We can make our own masks, and we can recycle our clothes. So by that we can with the help of that, we can reduce the amount of trees that are being cut for the purpose of garments and stuff. So I think these are the things. And also the last point that you said, that being a responsible citizen, like we can always look for the ingredients before buying a product, so that, and also we can be a little more knowledgeable by reading the newspaper, so that we can contribute for our nature in a positive way. And we have to, because even I remember that 10 years back, when I was in school, environmental health, climate change was still a topic for essays. But now, when we have this recent outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, people are aware of the fact that maintenance of environmental health and hygiene, these are so important. Or, I'm so sorry, the video had
Okay.
stopped. Hello.
Okay. Okay.
Am I audible?
Go ahead.
The
Yes,
video
yes, you're
stopped.
audible.
So I believe that these are the processes that we can opt for, so that we can effectively contribute. And we have to, because if we do not do it right now, we will not be having the chance. And also, I think that the purpose of academia is to make people conscious about their activities. It is environmental health and sustainability. These are not only the topics that we write essays about or critical papers about. And I'm glad, because when I was following up with different activities of Green Ammo, that you guys are actually helping people to make bottle bricks, because these activities are important. So there's no point of writing just academic papers about it if we cannot make a change. So these will be the suggestions to everybody, and I would also like to follow it, so that I can be a responsible citizen and effectively contribute to the idea of sustainable environment.
That's really good to know. Well, thank you so much for having or giving us this really nice insight about what you think and this gives us a lot of courage to continue our work. And I wish you all the best in your studies and in your work. May you also spread the knowledge and idea of sustainability far and wide, and bring about a bigger change in the nature. I see that you have the same concern, and I just wish that your uh, wishes towards a more sustainable life gets fulfilled. Thank you
Thank
once
you,
again
Amita.
for being here with us, Upashana,
Thank you,
and you have
Amita.
a very good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, take care.
I'm
Bye
I'm
bye.
really thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. So this has been our session for Green Animate. Again, if you like what we do, our work and the conversations that we have, please do like, share, and subscribe. And as usual, keep sharing knowledge and happiness. All of you, take care, and we'll meet again. Bye bye.